Appreciate you. Thank you for the alert. Appreciate the alert. You working right now? You at work? That's why? I think I did this right. Hope I did. Have you seen the game Darkest Days on PC? No, I haven't. Welcome back, YouTube, with another day of Ghost of Tsushima. We are on the second island right now, and we didn't get that far. If it's something you want to stream together and play, I'll be down sometime. What is the game about? I need to look it up. It won't load. I'm waiting for the controller. What is the game about? Alright, what do we need to do? It's been a minute. What was I doing pre? I don't remember. Kinda like Days Gone zombie game. Oh, okay. Is it free? That's the only question. I don't think I have nothing to do. Why am I over here? Oh, I think I was doing the location. Jay, what's up, bro? I'm chilling. I am chilling. Nothing to really complain about. I'm just trying to figure out how to get down there. What's up with you? I've been catching your streams lately. I don't know how to get on there. It's free? Alright, but I will definitely download it later. And I will let you know. Also, we are also streaming on YouTube as well. So if you want to watch it there, you can. I got you. I am going to check Steam. What's it called again? Darkest Days? Oh, word, I appreciate. Oh yeah, of course. I've been catching them. Been watching. No problem. I've just been trying to catch up with people that I really just haven't talked just a bit. More mythic moves. I want more moves. Can I fast travel anywhere? I can. Also, it would be appreciated, Jesus, if you would post my link in the Discord. That'd be much appreciated.
Many say they're myth, but the Kappa are real.
If you have time.
Demons, my lord. They've been seen near.
What are you up to, Jay? What are you doing?
Demons.
How's your weekend been?
Man. I'll go see for myself.
I also want to see how streaming on YouTube will do. The spirit of Yarikawa's adventure. Where is that? Take this off. This? Oh. Already. Oh, I'm already. No, I'm not. Where the hell did Horsey? Oh, we didn't speak to him. I'm slow. We didn't speak to him.
Getting desperate.
Did we? We did speak to him. But where's the mom? Where do I have to go? Not that far. I don't really need the horse. Pretty close. I haven't been streaming in like 4 days. Is that bad? I would say so. But a break is always necessary. We'd die. Okay. Getting there, close.
Be the spirit of Yarikawa's vengeance. Tread carefully, my lord. Old Yarikawa is a dangerous place.
What happened here?
We were coming down the road and heard screams. By the time we got here, it was too late.
They must have killed each other.
No, it was the spirit of Yarikawa's vengeance.
Spirit.
You know some of the tale, but not all.
But not all. Did you know that they're making an anime for Ghost of no, not Ghost of Tshima.
In every generation, one lord was taught their family secret, a deadly technique called the Dance of Wrath.
They are making an anime for Ghost of Tsushima. It's coming out 2026. I can't wait. It's going to be amazing.
Though beloved by his
Definitely
people,
going to watch
he
it
resented
when
Clan
it
Shimura's
comes out
power, desperate
next
to
year, of
seize
course.
control.
What's
He
up,
set off
man?
a bloody rebellion that claimed
You're
countless
just doing rounds?
lives.
Got you. Welcome in.
Lord Shimura's
Appreciate you being
father
here.
and brothers
How you doing
fell
today?
to
How's
Yarikawa's
your
Dance of Wrath technique. But with Clan Sakai's aid,
Appreciate you
Shimura put down the
being here.
rebellion and executed
Like I said.
Lord Yarikawa. Before he died, the traitor vowed to avenge his conquered people from beyond the brave. Now they leave offerings to his spirit at shrines in old Yarikawa's ruins. They beg for their enemies to die, and the spirit of Yarikawa's vengeance answers their calls
How's it going?
with the
I'm doing
dance
great, thank you.
of wrath.
I'm doing good. Just been chilling, watching
You believe these men were
videos,
killed by
watching
that spirit?
new
They were merchants
TV
known for cheating their
stuff.
customers, profiting from deceit.
Just chilling.
So someone prayed for their deaths.
The
Just
shrines
enjoying
overflow
my
with
days.
offerings to the spirit, begging
Smoking,
him for bloody
you know.
retribution.
The
Where do I
casual
find these
stuff.
shrines?
People burn a handful of straw and flower petals to make smoke,
That's awesome.
so the
It'll be fun.
spirit finds their
Hope
prayers.
you had a great Tuesday. My Tuesday
Look to
been
the sky,
going
my
good
lord.
so far, and I hope it stays like that. I just really have a stream in a couple of days, so let's see how this stream goes. Let's see how this
Be
stream
careful. Yarikawa's
works
people
out today.
haven't forgotten your clan's role in their downfall.
That was a long time ago.
Not to them.
I haven't really been consistent, but I have been talking to stream and I am not streaming. Let's see. It does. It does pay off. Search Yarikawa for white. Awesome. As I said, no problem. Totally okay. I know that you will be back. What type of white smoke are we looking for? Like a thick smoke, a fog type smoke, like what type of like black smoke, like a burning fire? Well, white smoke, so I'm assuming like a thick fog. Going there right there. This is white smoke. I'm going this way. This place seems really creepy. Whatever this place. I found it! Oh shit, oh my god! Jesus Christ! I just got murked, bro! That was like 5 arrows to the torso! That was crazy. I just got shot down and like no hesitation. I didn't even know where I didn't even know where that was coming from. That's the wrong button. How many are there? 1, 2. Oh no! You didn't see me. You didn't see anything. Oh Lord indeed. I just got fucking like obliterated. Alright, how can I sneak through this without getting seen? That's what I'm trying to do right now. I don't want to get seen. Someone already saw me! God damn it. You didn't see anything. Oh my, yo, those shits are flying. I don't know where he is. I'm terrified. Nah, he is trying to kill me. Alright. Alright, we need to get rid of the archer, bro. We need. Oh my god. You don't even have time to react, bro. That nigga's like sharpshooting you. Look how fast, yo! My. I'm not scared of the people with the swords. I'm scared of the people with the bows. Like they just really violating my existence right now. I need a different tactic. Black powder. Do something. Fuck! Oh, there's so many. There's so many. There's so many. Oh my god. Alright. Okay, that's a whole different part of the map. These bows are destroying my. I need to figure out how to get. Bows are the problem. If I get the high ground, I think that. I think that. If I can only just like stay in the trees, but I don't think that will work. I don't have no arrows. I need to find the one with the bows though. Those niggas can take me on an instant. Like you have seen. This is filled with guns. Damn, he didn't die. I didn't have my keys at all. Oh, I didn't know they can run up here. Oh, shit. Is he running up here? Oh, he is. Oh, no, no, no. Did not have my keys. I literally got checked them out like one by one because there's just too many of them. And those arrows are crazy fast. Even though I can like dodge them, there's just too many of them. So this is my way of taking them out, and it seems to be working. Yes, you know.
Энэ хаваас харваад байсан. Би сайн харлаа. Нөгөө самурай чинь ном сумтай байна. Сум нь хүрчихгүй штэ. Сум шонгонох шиг болсон. Хэн вэ? Агуу. Тэг хүн сум тавьлаа. Нэг нь бидэнд зүү харваад бай.
I ain't kill nobody. I don't know where I don't know where that landed. I can assassinate the. There's one person. Oh, he went back there. Oh, there's so many. I just got shot. Ah, shit. I'm stuck. Oh my Dude, he shot me 5 times while I was in the air. Like, what kind of accuracy is that? Like, that's crazy. Oh my god. Dude, what the... That's crazy. These arrows are wild. I need a strategy. Oh. Era of overwhelming. Oh my god. I need to figure out how to get rid of all the bowmen. I need to figure out how to get rid of all the damn people with the arrows. Bro, I don't even have time to react. Dude, what the... Oh, there's so many of them. I need to figure this out.
내게 못 있어.
Oh, block. They block.
역시 또 써. What the? I have no words. Do they have like an automatic like machine that can shoot bows? Wouldn't make sense. I feel like that's what's happening because those shit was just going off like crazy. Oh, good lord, arrows. Not, dude. Those shits are crazy. There's no way they're shooting that fast. I need arrows. I thought I can block arrows too. I don't know why I can't block them. I don't know where that was coming from. There's nobody with an arrow! Where, bro? Nah. I'm getting hit. I'm getting hit from arrows that's not even the people that's shooting them. And they're coming out way too fast. And I kind of forgot how to play the game accurately. I don't even know what freaking move stance to go for. There's just too many people. It's very overwhelming. Just like what the game tells you. They spot me already.
I love how they're all just running back. These bow niggas are pissing me off. Stop running, you little bitch! I hate these guys with a passion. Okay, man. That was ridiculous. That was not fun. That's very dangerous. Because I can't compete with them. Too many of them. I think I might just have to redraw. Do that another time. I still don't know what. I don't know what white smoke they want me to. What I'm doing, dude. Assuming the white smoke is coming from the village, or that thing does, or the smoke that's coming out from that house. I don't think I'm going. What's a dive roll? What's a dive roll? Out of that jump.
A shrine to the spirit of Yerikawa's vengeance. Someone left a message.
Oh, alright. Traded to our people.
Yerikawa was a traitor to our people. He's at the camp nearby. End his worthless life. They must mean the survivor camp.
I don't know why I'm running around. It's right there. I don't even know. It was right here this whole time, and I went traveling, and I got my ass kicked like 4 times.
Which one of you is Heitaro?
I am.
Someone asked the spirit of Yarikawa's vengeance to kill you.
Why would they do that?
He's a Mongol spy. Sneaks off every night for hours. Won't say where he goes.
I've done nothing wrong.
If you're helping the Mongols, I will find out.
I would never do that. Please, let me prove it.
Make him confess, my lord.
I'll explain, but not here. Follow me.
Where you going? Here you go. You just said follow you and then just disappear, dude. I don't know where that nigga went. Oh. I found you. He just vanished. Or I just
They prayed for my
got lost.
You should be
Could
more
be
concerned
both.
about me. Unlike the spirit, I'm real.
But my lord, I've seen it.
Really? Where?
On the road. 3 bandits tried to rob me. The spirit cut their throats and vanished.
So, just watching you guys drink tea. Relaxing. I don't think I'm supposed to be with. I think I followed the wrong person.
My lord, is something wrong?
Oh, there you are. So I was hanging out with the wrong people. That's embarrassing.
This is where I come at night, my lord.
A grave. Who's buried here?
His name was Tojiro. We were close. But his wife and family were at the camp. I can't explain why I visit without hurting them.
I understand. But the people at your camp don't, and they're scared. It's not safe for you.
Where else can I go?
Make your way to Ariake. Go, before it's too late.
Thank you, my lord.
Alright, wait.
Some of these may be new to you.
Same shit, bro.
Goodbye.
Your victories give us hope.
Which direction should I go? Go up. Love you too, Jesus. How's work? I'm assuming that's what you're doing? Or are you sure?
Someone left a message for the spirit of Yarikawa's vengeance.
Oh, I was going the right way. Let's go. W.
The Mongols enslave our people. They camp along the Kushi River, not far from the shrine. Destroy them. This is my fight, not the spirits.
Search for the Mongol camp along. Oh, I found it already. And someone burned it down.
The spirit cut down the horses.
That horsey.
Shieldmen. It took impressive skill to kill them.
Yeah, they're freaking annoying too.
Not Mongols. Ours. Why were they killed?
Let me out! Please, my lord!
Calm down. I'll free you.
Relax.
Tell me what happened.
The spirit! He cut through them all! Then he left. Thought I was going to die in a cage.
Who were these people with the Mongols?
They're the ones who sold me to them.
You're free. Go.
Thank you.
The spirit moved on. Perhaps to another shrine.
Quickly, Sora.
Another shrine to the spirit. If there was a message here, the spirit already claimed it. A battle, close by.
Stand and fight me!
There's a way in through that opening below. Someone's been living here for a long time. Warned by a samurai of Yarikawa. Ugh, infested with fleas. A banner of Clan Yarikawa. Offerings taken from the shrines to the spirit. Written by an educated hand. But the words are nonsense. Something about Lord Yarikawa being alive. Did a samurai of Clan Yarikawa survive? I have to find whoever this is. I need to look for another shrine offering.
Dick. Alright, where do we see smoke?
the offering to the spirit. Lord Sakai is the last of his clan, and a servant of the dog Shimura. Lead him to the Garden of the Gods so they may witness his death. Prayer to the spirit. To kill me, I'll go to the Garden of the Gods and end this.
That was so lame.
My lord.
Who said that? Oh, that is terrifying.
Boss!
Lord Sakai.
Tell me where to find the Garden of the Gods.
You're close. Look for the statues of our gods, created by the sculptor Zonkaku. They stand watch over the garden.
Firefly.
Statues of the gods.
I was here
This must be
before.
their garden. A shrine. But no spirit. This note's addressed to me. Yarikawa's vengeance has come for you. So you're the spirit.
I am the wind that stirs the ashes. I am Yarikawa's vengeance.
You spilled blood using a technique that died with a clan of traitors. Who are you? A samurai's daughter? Did you survive the rebellion?
No one survived. This is a land of ghosts.
Who asked you to kill me?
The peasants who bow to you. The merchants who smile as you pay them. All Yarikawa prays for the death of Clan Sakai and Shimura.
Not everyone. Some forgive.
The rest weep for revenge. I will bring them comfort.
You're fast.
You never should have come! At last, vengeance! nothing.
You're fast.
You never should have come. At last, vengeance.
I see how you move.
Yarikawa is your grave. At last, vengeance.
I see how you move.
Yarikawa is your grave.
I'm blinding myself.
You're fast.
You never should have come. What are you doing?
Learning. I know how to defeat you.
No, you will die.
You were a great warrior, but you let rage blind you to the true enemy. The Dance of Wrath belongs to me now. I'll use it as you should have.
That's far, bro.
Norio's here. No sign of any other monsters.
And spirits have always
What's happening here? Mongol yurt. Some kind of restraint on her. She bit her tongue off. Bled to death. What did these people endure? This color. I don't recognize the tribe. I can help. What's wrong?
Hurry! They're coming through the window! Run!
That's over now. You're here with me.
No.
Their minds are lost in 1,000 hells. Who did this?
No, just it.
Happened.
Who is that talking?
This shit look crazy.
You hear that?
This shit looks wild. I don't know what happened, but something happened.
Looks like an altar for some kind of Mongol ceremony.
Samurai!
Samurai.
The eagle calls to you!
These guys are much stronger. Shamans enter a chanting trance to stir the spirits of their allies, allowing the attack relentless.
He's chanting, filling them with bloodlust.
He's really going for it, dude. And he can fight, I'm assuming. Yep. Yes, he can. Oh, yes, he can fight! Fire! Jesus! This spirit dude is kicking my ass.
More of them.
Hello? Hold on. There's two shamans?
More of them.
Bro, they coming in hot too.
More of them.
Jesus, I don't have time to fucking react, bro. Bro, these niggas are sprinting at me. Oh my god.
I don't even have time to breathe. It is war, so I have nothing. Like downpour more. It looks cooler. I'm getting fucking murked, bro.
More of them.
I threw that way too far. Oh, I killed him. That's one shaman. Thank God, no fucking bastard. They do take longer to kill though, which is the annoying part. There's two shamans. They're both dead. Oh, fine. I don't have to deal with them anymore.
Bastards. You won't torment anyone else.
That was crazy.
I need to find out who these invaders are.
The freaking shamans are ridiculous, bro. They don't need them. They're too ridiculous.
Tell me what you did to these people.
They heard the call of the eagle.
The Eagle. Is he your leader?
She will lead the eagle tribe to your shores, with all of IKI Island at her back.
They came from IKI Island.
Father.
Jin, help me. May your death benefit all beings.
I came as soon as I heard. Those people.
They're getting the help they need. But I don't know if they will recover.
What happened to them?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen these Mongols before. They claim to follow someone called the Eagle. And they're planning an attack on Tshima.
Those people lost their minds. If the eagle can do that to the whole island...
She won't.
How will you find her?
One of our people mentioned Iki Island.
It's full of raiders and criminals. They hate the samurai.
I know. My father led the campaign to pacify them, and he died on that island. The samurai retreated after he fell. Now something monstrous has taken root on Iki Island. I have to go back.
IKI Island unlocked.
Your boat's ready.
Where is that at? Hmm. Where's IKI Island? Is that even on here? It should be. I find it later.
We sail on your command. Are you sure about this, Lord Sakai? Iki Island's no place for a samurai.
You're about to start a long series of tales. The enemies of Iki Island are ruthless and can test the strength of even the most hardened warriors. Are you want to perceive? Can we go back to this? Let's try it out.
Northwestern shore.
Near Fort Sakai.
My father built it the last. If there's trouble on Iki, the locals may be sheltering there.
I'll get you there as fast as I can, my lord. The sea's been angry ever since those Mongols arrived. Storms are especially fierce around Iki.
Not surprising. The Eagle tribe is doing something horrible there.
Whatever they're up to, they've angered the Kami. But don't worry, I've sailed through worse.
Come, Sora.
What's up, Kat? How you doing? Welcome in. We chilling, we playing more Ghost. Currently going off to a secret island. And just to let everybody know, I'm also live on YouTube as well as Twitch at the same time. So if you don't have Twitch, you can watch on YouTube.
Sora!
How's your day going, Kat? What's your evening like today? What you doing? Oh, you double dipping? Yes, sir. Trying to see what works. Trying to figure out new methods. And just trying to branch out. Going fine. Got a ton of work around the house, and on the bot, I'm trying to start a new job. So, what's the job? What's your new job? How's your day? My day been good. Relax for a little bit, smoke just a tad bit, and started streaming. And then my mom came home, and I helped her with the groceries. And put them away. And now we're back to streaming. Do you understand? I can try to understand. I can try my best. You can try your best to break it down as much as possible, but yeah, I can try. Oh, well, that's what I be doing. I be working help desk is essentially. So that means like take calls or reports or things just of that nature. If that makes any sense.
Sora!
I don't. Right? Wrong?
You made it to shore.
I think I'm wrong. I don't know. Well, this is beautiful. Basically, I'll be a contracting HR consultant for companies that contract other HR. There's a couple of
different factors and wells of information, I'll be the gatekeeper. Oh, okay, got you. Okay. I understand that. I understand that. This looks fucking beautiful. Scary, but beautiful. Is he about to sneeze? What's happening? What the hell was that? I think that was a sneeze. So, are you happy that you are starting a brand new job, or are you nervous? Are you happy? Excited? I'll just be banging phones all day long, helping people answer questions about their time off and benefits and shit. Okay. That sounds like a pretty comfortable gig. That doesn't sound too crazy. It sounds like it can get stressful and tiring. Oh, I should press LT. I can't say that I'm happy, but I'm glad for a new opportunity to put my effort towards something that is going to pay me directly instead of investing all of my energy into ventures and people that might turn into something. I can agree to that. IKI Island. Ooh. This is definitely the thumbnail. This is definitely investigate the new Mongol threat. Let's look at the new map. I'm A negative. Really glad to be getting out of sales, and B glad to be earning a income again. I can understand that completely. This is a whole new island. Should I be here? Oh, well, fuck it. I love how I missed that jump entirely, but it's fine.
Osaka isn't far. I should see if anyone is sheltered there.
And I don't think I have my horse.
Maybe near the wreckage of our boat. If it washed ashore.
Well, I'm glad that you got a brand. I'm glad you got a brand new gig, and you finally get to earn some money.
Broken bird. Some say they know every secret on this island. I wonder where it's going.
Proud. So does that mean you just are going to be streaming less now? Since you got a job on Thursday? I'm sorry! I didn't mean to intrude! Oh!
Shaman's chant bolsters his allies.
This
There's another shaman. Oh my god. Pissing me off, bro. Trying to save this lady. I'm going to be doing a whole lot less for sure. Okay. But like, are you still going to try to stream though? I'm coming, lady.
You're going to be all right.
So, is this like part-time,
Please,
full-time?
go to the north of the island and look for the cliff with the seagulls.
Why would you send me there?
I have seen men leap to their death. They say the Eagle tribe makes you choose, join or jump. And now they have my son.
Say no more. I'll make sure no one has to make that choice
That's a
again.
crazy, ritual?
Reminds me of a song
No,
my
that's the
mother
wrong
would
word.
play.
That's a very strange recruitment process. You either join or you jump to your death. You have no choice. You either die or you join us. So like, you might as well join. You know, like I don't think they want to like die. You know. Alright, where the fuck am I? I lost a friend. The eagles cry. These are what we are supposed to be mainly doing, but I got caught up in helping a random stranger. So now I don't know where we're running to. I don't know where the girl went. Ooh.
Throw your blades!
Oh, fuck that up too. Oh shit. Is that the brother? I don't know. I'm assuming that's the brother.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Freed by a samurai.
Be careful out there.
It's around here somewhere.
Yeah, where's the girl that I was with previously? I think she just vanished. I don't know. I lost my horse. I lost Sora, man. I miss my baby horse. But apparently we have new techniques or some shit. Or am I wrong about that? I'm wrong. Everything's the same. Yep, everything is the complete same. Alright, how do I get up this? Oh, we made it. It was definitely going up the mountain. Okay. Oh, this looks dangerous. You didn't see me. You didn't. Bonus damage. Damage enemies with a sticky bomb. I don't think I have any. I have black powder bomb. Yeah, I'm trying to do like a sneak attack. Bad, bro. I know that took way too long, but press down. That was a yell? Honestly, fire scream. He was doing a bit too much, bro. He was trying too hard to be fancy with it, and I was not having it. Okay. He was doing a little bit too much work. I got the high ground now, motherfuckers. We got 1, 2, 3. Is he wearing a helmet? He definitely is. I kind of want to like sneak attack them looking. Oh, there's so many. It's like 3 of them in there. That's not what I meant to do. I was trying to jump on the fucking railing. Nice. Sweet perfection. Okay. Alright, I gotta figure out what to do from here. I can just go straight in, but like there's like way too many guards and that's not gonna end up as well as I want it to. I'm trying to see what the best people to take out. Fucking pet, bro.
Sumota, begin move their sweat! No down! Oh, Gonsta!
The fire's not even doing shit, son. That's crazy. Fuck off, Shaman. What's up, Kev? How you doing? I was locked in there. I wasn't trying to die. What's up? Alright, let me try to regain some health. It's all good. What you up to? Honestly, I don't even know what day it is. To be completely honest. Don't even know what day it is. Hold on, I can't do something. Oh, that's a clip. Can someone clip that, please? That was fucking fire. Oh, that's Archer. That was such a good clip. Can someone clip that, please? Stream helping to give support. I appreciate you. Can you just do me one favor though? Can you just clip that moment that just happened? That was fucking beautiful. Wait, I was trying to dodge that. Did not dodge that. I just ran up in there. What? I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I've been posting clips from this game and they've been doing pretty well.
Also subscribe to the YouTube channel. I am streaming there as well. I'm at 20 subs right now, so it'd be appreciated if you gave it a subscribe and a like and a share. I'm also streaming there as well right now. I love the sport. I'm just gonna take a little break. Okay, that's done. How's your day been though? Oh no, no, let me fall. That wasn't even a hard fall. Come on, bro. That was light work and you know it. I have honor. Immortal hope. How many check marks? Check marks, what the fuck? Question marks. There's only 3, but this island's pretty big. Oh no, there's 4 actually. Dear sanctuaries needed to earn charm of Sugaru's sight. Cool. Okay, nice. Alright, where do I want to go now? Do another undiscovered location. You think if I jump in the water, I will survive? Let's go, we made it. The sad thing is I still don't have my horse. So I just have to run around everywhere. But at least I'm wearing drippy clothes, bro. Going up the mountain again. He must be sweating his balls off wearing all these damn layers of thick clothes. And it's all made out of real, like, material. So that shit must be heavy as all hell. Like, I know he can't breathe right now. I think he's panting for his life. Who are these guys? And I ran way further from my marked location.
If you can handle yourself in a fight.
Archery challenge.
Come
Oh,
here.
cool.
Are you challenging me?
That depends. Are you for or against these Mongols?
Against.
Then that's all I need to know. We set up archery targets around Iki to train for another samurai invasion. Instead, we got Mongols. If you're looking for practice, shoot an arrow through each lantern as fast as you can.
I've shot warriors while riding on horseback. I think I can hit a few lanterns.
Hitting them is one thing. Speed is another. When you're ready, grab an arrow. That's what I'm telling you.
Come on. Try again.
27.72. Damn. Oh, I gotta beat the time. Okay. I didn't see that. 7 seconds is gold? How fast is your fucking trigger hand? 7 seconds is crazy. Time of concentration. But I got it though. But 7 seconds is wild. 7 seconds is like, what the fuck?
My tip? Imagine you're shooting at samurai.
I am a samurai. I want to try it again. 7 seconds is ridiculous. I went too low. Went too low. I missed. I can do better. I can definitely do better than that. Oh, I forgot about the last one up there, not gonna lie. I can definitely do better than that. Nah, that was terrible. I can definitely do better than that.
Sides with Fune. Every time.
Bro, how am I always missing one? What the fuck am I doing wrong? Am I not holding it down enough? Oh, come on now. That's just embarrassing.
You can do better than that.
I know I can.
Crazy fool. Going to get himself killed. Sick of being defeated.
20 seconds. God damn, I hit 20 seconds exactly. I'm so invested in this, bro. This is like a rhythm game. Fuck your mom! How am I missing? Okay, this is fucking pathetic. I'm just getting myself mad because I just keep doing worse. I just keep doing worse. And I'm just also wasting time. How don't you learn how to fall as a samurai, bro? Come on. Where's all my fucking effort to come to a stupid haiku?
Unreachable sky. Ribbons suffocate boulders. Yet a quiet calm.
Very cool. 31 cup, thank you. Got you tied up to support while gaming. Have a good stream, I appreciate you. What are you playing? Dear sanctuaries needed to earn times.
My mother loved the deer.
What am I supposed to do here?
I'll play one of her songs for them.
Oh. What the fuck? Okay, this is new. I'm serenading a deer. And I thought I would would do this in this game, but okay, that's pretty cool. I vibe with it.
My mother would sit us down by deer like these.
That deer chunky.
Recite poems
Chunky deer.
For them. I struggled. Whenever I faltered, she would pick up right where I left off. She knew it all by heart.
That was very peaceful. I like that. Alright. Time a lost friend. Time to start an actual mission now. On this new island. I still gotta find my horse. Excuse me. Apparently I got the hiccups. Out of nowhere.
that brought me
That's
here.
Shami, son.
Sora! Where are you, boy? Captain of my boat.
Where's my baby horse at? I'm going way further than I need to. I think the horse drowned, bro.
Drowned in the storm.
That sucks. That is so awful. No one should die like that. That is crazy. In a storm?
Another lost in the struggle against the Mongols. Another I failed to protect.
That's your fault.
He died in service to Tshima. No sign of Sora. He has to be alive.
Common courtesy. Discover and complete all a written tale on IKI. Oh, okay.
Maybe he left tracks in the sand. I know those tracks. Sora survived.
Your lost friend.
Where did you run to, boy?
I think I lost the tracks already.
You stopped to graze. Must have been calm. And starving.
He's probably weak, tired, hungry, and very confused.
Quiet! We'll hear you. The Eagle Tribe is hunting us. The things they do to people's minds, it's awful.
Calm down. We're alone here.
When I heard them coming, I ran. Didn't see the snake till I was almost on it.
You did a fine job killing it.
Not me. A horse came charging out of nowhere, trampled it, and saved my life.
The horse? Which way did he go?
Up the hill, toward the Mongols.
Thank you.
If you find that horse, give him my thanks.
Okay. Am I used to running in the same direction? I am.
Footprints. Mongol. They were surprised. Then gave chase. Skull's broken. By a horse's kick.
That's Sora. That's my boy right there.
That sound. They're close. Sora, he needs me. Or not.
Stop throwing shit. I didn't get. I did. Okay. Wow. Wow. That's how I die. It's crazy.
Or not?
Dumb bitch. Yeah, fuck you. Okay, these guys are very unpredictable. He has a spear, 2 swords, and a shield.
Sora, he needs me. Or not?
What the fuck did I miss? I love how I died 3 times. Just from those 2 people.
So trampled. Good work, boy.
I'm rusty, bro. And this is on medium too.
Sora! I'm here, boy.
I think that tells you a lot.
I thought I lost you. But I should have known you'd never give up. Remember that trick from before? Where you charged the Mongols? Let's try that again.
Horse charge range or resolve over time. When your resolve runs out, your horse will stop charging.
It's good to have you back, boy.
This dude is fucking tough. How is everything full? New ghost techniques upgrades are available for horse. Winds of Resolve, Winds of Triumph, Winds of Harmony. Follow the guiding winds to discover animal sanctuaries. Follow the guiding winds to discover items that allow you to personalize your appearance. Increase maximum health. Resolve. Follow the guiding wind to discover archery challenge. Is this the horse charge right here?
Forward charge efficiency charged by 30%. Not bad, not bad, not bad. Rescue the survivor. Fine.
Let's go.
If I must. As a samurai, I guess. Okay, that charge completely backfired, bro. For samurai, he's too fucking slow. Always the niggas with the spears, bro. They have the most fucking balls. Because they have the most reach, so they're not scared. What the bro? Pissing me off. Oh my god, these niggas are so annoying. They just lunge. They just keep lunging at you. Fuck, man.
We need to help him.
Okay. Only got two. And I didn't even get the fucking ones that are most annoying. I should have just let them all run towards me. Just in one line. Bro, why are you sucking dick, bro? Fuck off.
Help me, please.
Someone's in trouble. We need to help him.
Such a fail, bro. W stream, thank you guys. Fucking annoying tyrants, bro. These niggas with the shields are fucking annoying.
Asa__P cheered 10 bits.
The last of them.
Thank you for the 10 bits. I love how I died fucking 3 times finding these because you pussy bitch. Why are you running? I hate people like you. They like to talk shit and then they run. Fucking get out of here, bro. And you failed the mission because I ran out the fucking... Ah, so lame! I failed the mission because I fucking ran off?
We need to help him.
What kind of bullshit is that, bro? Oh, God! Just kill me. I love how I fucking won and then I failed because I ran off.
We need to help him.
You can suck dick. That's ass, bro. That's dead ass. Fall off the mine, bro!
That's the last of them.
It's the only way they can kill him. Just by parrying his shit because he's just too much.
That's twice you saved my life.
You got captured twice?
You're welcome.
I meant him. But
oh,
my
the horse,
thanks
that's
to both
crazy.
of you.
Good work, boy. Time to go. This island needs us.
Does it really? I think they're perfectly fine without us being here. Alright, where's my next? The eagles cry.
Ой, Арво, я съм бе. Зипсък ли бирт, затъки!
Don't let them take us back!
Bro, where do like 20 people just be coming from out of fucking nowhere? Like, the fuck, these niggas just ran down the mountain like they were just there. The fuck? This island has way too many enemies, bro. And I think this is what was supposed to happen, but like, it was a fucking ambush.
You. Are you the eagle? The scouts you sent to Tshima. I killed them. Khotun Khan is dead. We defeated his army on Tshima. Tomorrow, 1,000 samurai will join me on the shores of IKI. Surrender, and we will spare you.
Your journey was hard. Drink?
There are easier ways to kill me.
I do not harm my guests.
What did you give me?
My sacred medicine. Save your strength. This is the easy part.
You won't break me.
You were broken long ago. I release your spirit to travel the underworld. Face the judgment of your ancestors.
Lord.
You know, I told you not to come.
Lucky for you, I didn't listen. I borrowed the first ship I could find. What's wrong? What did they do to you?
The Eagle Tribe's leader. She fed me some kind of poison.
Let's find you a healer before they come back.
My katana was here.
Look around for the rest of your things.
The Eagle and her Mongols. Where are they?
I started a fire outside the compound. Drew them out to investigate.
All right, let's go.
This way.
How did she end up here? Poor Sakai. What?
After all these years, Fort Sakai is still here.
You know this place?
My father built it.
Ah, of course.
That makes so much sense.
Is anyone on the island fighting back against the Mongols?
Of course
None that I
not.
know of.
Nah, there are
So you haven't
some
found
people
allies?
probably.
No. IKI Island resents Clan Sakai. It will be hard to gather support.
Because of your father.
They don't
Give
like
me a
our
hand
name.
with this gate.
They resent us.
When will the other samurai get here?
Other samurai? I didn't tell anyone. Not
Of course you
Tshima.
didn't.
Was your father killed at this fort?
No. We were ambushed in the canyons.
So you were there with him. This way.
There are people here?
Where
Why
to?
is she sneaking?
There's a ravine across the yard. We can escape that way.
Interesting. I'll follow you.
Like I know where the fuck to go.
Losing your father in an ambush. I can't imagine how painful that was.
Sometimes I can't either.
Our wrong area? You stop crouching? I was going to get back there, bro. Why do they... whatever, it doesn't matter. They're so, like, stiffy, but you every time the area.
Losing your father in an ambush. I can't imagine how painful that was.
Sometimes I can't either.
Try climbing down. What do you see?
Why didn't you help me?
Father?
You let him kill me.
I wanted to save you.
You saw your father die.
Something's wrong. You poisoned me.
To open your mind, these visions are just the beginning. Without my help, the fear and pain will overwhelm you. Let me guide you through the horror. Purge the guilt from your spirit. Make you whole again. Just as I have done for all my shamans. Then we will tame this island and finish what your father started. Help me defeat the raiders of IKI Island. Avenge your father's death.
No!
Jin!
Jin!
Where am I?
Jin! Can you hear me?
Father?
Oh, look at me, I'm so young.
Poor boy. You failed your father, and now your soul is lost.
I tried to teach the child all I know, but he acts more like a poet than a samurai. Jin! You're in danger! Keep going!
I'm coming, Father!
Kazumasa doubted you, and you proved him right. What kind of samurai watches his father die?
After my father was killed, he sailed home with his body. I wished I had drowned.
Soft. Mumsy. If he dies in battle, the future of our clan is in danger.
Your father never wanted you on Iki. Everything you do tarnishes the Sakai name.
That's a lie!
Jin is a trap! Honey, thieves!
I'm coming,
Murderers,
Father!
tricksters! Destroy our clan!
Father!
May your death benefit all beings.
Father.
You all right?
The eagle.
She's close. We better go. I know someplace safe.
Mind fuckery to the max.
You weren't looking so good. I let you rest.
Who are you? Answer me.
You're used to talking that way to people on Tshima, but not here, Samurai.
I don't even know if you're real.
Draw your blade. Find out how real I am.
If you're from IKI, you know who won the Battle of Cloud Forest.
Rained 2 weeks straight before that battle. Flash flood killed samurai and islanders alike. We all lost. My turn to ask questions. What's a samurai doing on Iki Island?
The Eagle sent a scouting party to Tshima. When I saw what they did to our people, I knew I had to stop them.
So you saw the effects of her poison?
More than that, she made me drink it.
And you can still hold a conversation? First time I've seen that.
How long does it take to wear off?
As far as I know, it doesn't.
I won't let that stop me. How long have the Mongols been here?
Few weeks. Wiped out most of the raiders. My crew are the last holdouts.
I can help you fight back and drive the Eagle from Iki.
A samurai? Helping raiders?
Anything to stop the Eagle.
What's your name?
Jin. From Yarikawa.
Let me think about your offer. Jin from a Yarikawa.
You're not slipping away that easily.
I need to find more survivors, and you need to get your head on straight. Catch up to me at a farmhouse on the western coast, and we'll talk more. If the eagle's poison doesn't break you first.
It won't.
Investigate the new Mongol threat on Iki Island. That's completed.
Clear my head. Then meet Tenzo. I can't let the Eagle tribe destroy this island.
Meet Tenzo so he can take you to the raid. That's far, bro. That's actually pretty. How is everybody in chat doing?
From your father's death for years.
Oh my god.
There is nowhere left to run. The nightmare will grow worse. You cannot face your father's death alone. Without my wisdom, you will lose your soul to madness.
The visions. They're still happening.
Here!
Old Gambler's Wood.
Jin from Yarikawa. Didn't think you'd make it.
What happened here?
Friends of mine lived on this farm. I hoped they'd join our fight.
But those Mongol bastards got to them first. The least they deserve is a proper burial. Won't be long.
I'll help you.
You don't have to do that.
I know. I want to.
Grab a spade.
The Raiders return.
May they find peace in the next life.
I didn't take you for a religious man.
I'm full of surprises.
You said you would think about bringing me to your crew. Have you made up your mind?
That depends. Is the eagle's poison still affecting you?
Yes, but it hasn't slowed me down. Take me to meet your raider friends, and I'll prove I can help you fight back.
All right, samurai. We've got a ride ahead of us. Try and keep up.
Where are you taking me?
An old raider stronghold. We used it to hide from the samurai. Now it's keeping us safe from the Mongols.
You're not worried about taking a samurai to your secret hideaway?
Of course I am. But we need every fighting arm we can get. Just watch yourself once we get there. Ever since the Sakai invasion, samurai are slightly less popular than a pit of venomous snakes.
The Sakai invasion?
The butcher of IKI and his gang thought they could bring a little law and order to our island. We showed them, but not before losing a lot of good people.
From what I heard, neither side was innocent.
There's some truth to that. I've never seen a pretty war. There's a hidden entrance to the stronghold up ahead.
Mongols.
They found the entrance. Let's see how good you are with that blade, samurai.
Bro, they eating good.
Den Negumben. Yasım.
Good. You're not too sick to fight.
I just assassinated 2 people.
That's Fune's doing.
Assassinated
Any
3
outsiders
people at
find our
once.
home, we block the
I
entrance.
did all that shit by myself, bro. What you
Kill
mean?
the witnesses. No exceptions.
I hope she's more welcoming to invited guests.
Hello,
We'll
Jesus.
find out
Welcome
soon
back.
enough.
Is there another way in?
Only by sea. There was a path years ago, before my time. Don't know if it's still there.
It's worth a shot.
How many samurai has this man murdered? Remember your father's attendant? His throat was opened while he slept. His blood sprayed your tent.
Silence! Jin, you alright?
Yes. Sometimes I hear the eagle's voice.
Like she can read your mind or something?
No. I hear my own thoughts. Things I didn't know I was thinking. And her voice.
I hope it wears off.
I know that feeling. Oh, that is cool.
I see why the samurai never found this hideaway of yours.
It's the only stronghold on Iki that survived the Sakai invasion.
There's a nice ass beach.
Let's hope that holds for the Mongols.
No way to cross.
There's always a way.
Samurai have to say shit.
Oh
Do
shit.
pirates have to mouth off?
Just the clever ones. Neat trick. I could use one of those.
Make friends with a great blacksmith on Tsushima.
Visit Tsushima. Not worth it. Minor setback.
Look for a way around.
Never seen a samurai do that before.
You're welcome to join me.
You alright?
I'm fine.
You're doing great. Don't die. Not bad.
Thank you.
Bastards. They're after one of our ships.
Damn.
Friends of yours?
Call them friends. Yes. I knew them.
I'll get us through here.
That makes 4 craft we've lost to the Eagle's warship.
Longbow upgrade available.
How did you join up with Fune?
We enjoyed the hospitality of the Sakai Inn together.
You mean Fort Sakai?
Terrible food. But we left with our heads intact. Most of the guests weren't so lucky. Almost there.
He is luring
Oh,
you
shit.
into a den of murderers. They will kill you just as they killed your father.
Don't let her
When we
get into your
step through
head.
that
It's all a
gate,
trap.
There's no turning back. Everything you do is on my head. Don't make me regret this, Samurai.
You don't have to worry about me, Tenzo. I promise.
Good. Keep that attitude and you'll be fine. Just stay close. Keep your sword sheathed, and let me do the talking. Here we go.
Tenzo? You're back.
You brought a samurai here? Wait until Hune hears about this.
I'll tell her myself. Get back to your posts.
I'm watching you, samurai.
Let's get you to Fune. Impress her, and the wolves will back off.
And if I don't impress her?
I've seen her tie men up and leave them to drown at high tide. Even hung one trader from the mast of her ship for the gulls to eat. But I don't know what she'll do to a samurai.
And those people.
More victims of the eagle's poison. Not as lucky as you.
Tenzo! You're running out of clean rags!
Check the drawers. I have a shirt you can strip down. Let's go, Jin. Fune's waiting.
Was that your house?
They needed more than me. There's Fune, watching us from her favorite couch.
Tenzo, get your ass up here.
Coming, Fune! Remember, make nice. And stow this.
Damn, that nigga jetted up those stairs, bro. I don't think, yes, master. Like,
Welcome back, Tenzo.
he like
I can explain.
I hope
glitched
so,
the.
because right now I'm really curious why you brought a samurai into my home.
You sent me to find people who can fight.
Fight for us, not against us.
If I wanted to come for you, you would know it.
Jin.
It's all right, Tenzo. I want to hear this samurai dig his own grave.
I'm here because the Mongols invaded my home too. And if the eagle isn't stopped on your shores, she's going to bring her army and her poison to Tsushima. We can defeat the Eagle and save both our homes. But only if we work together.
He's your catch, Tenzo. What's your take?
Maybe he helps us. Or he's skewered on a Mongol spear. And you get to brag about one more samurai dying on Iki Island. Either way, we've got nothing to lose.
You're in, samurai. I hope you don't get seasick. When the next storm hits, we're taking every boat in this cove and attacking that Mongol warship.
Sounds like a good way to lose half your men. Get me aboard that warship, and I can sink it.
Tenzo, get this fool out of my face.
Jin may have a point. We can't get close enough to board the warship. But a Mongol boat from Iki resupplies them every few days.
We can take their supply ship and make the delivery ourselves.
Tenzo, if you think this can work, you're in charge.
I need a dozen men. Jin can be one of them.
They're yours.
The supply ship docks on the northeast side of the island. Look for a small inlet, steep cliffs.
I'll meet you there. Fune, it has been a pleasure.
Just watch your step, samurai.
He cut off their ears, their noses, then their lips.
What's this mystic tale? What's this? Oh, we get new armor?
Such
That's the guy right there. Yeah.
Of Black Hand Riku.
Mizuhara Coast again. Oh, good. Mongols are set up all over. Made it through another day.
Your bow is only as strong as the boya who made it.
The speed dog shit.
Keep your bow aimed at the right scoundrels.
The draw speed sucks.
About going to the camp at the Rotten Lake. Raided by Mongols.
Did any survive?
They did. Our monk gave himself as ransom to save us. But without his skills, we're done anyway.
If he's still alive, I can bring him back to help you. It'll be worth it.
If I can improve upon your brain, I will.
I wanna save up.
Keep your friends close, but your armor in good order.
Concentration, time at 2 seconds.
All my customers come back.
Careful!
What are you talking about?
Black Hand Riku, the cursed pirate captain who terrorizes Iki Island from beyond the grave.
Black Hand Riku. Didn't he die at sea years ago?
That he did. I am Kashira. I sailed on Riku's bloodstained banner. The things I saw still haunt my nightmares.
Perhaps you can tell me the tale.
Of course. I hope you have a strong stomach. Black Hand Riku was once the cruelest pirate captain to ever terrorize IKI Island. He carved up his victims piece
Appreciate you, Jay. What you been up to?
A morsel for his loyal companion, a vicious monkey. Riku built his armor to honor a brutal Sarugami. This monkey demon inhabited his armor. Its cursed whispers drove
What you up to?
him to take risks, tempting him with the spoils of battle, while pushing him to the brink of ruin. 6 years ago, Black Hand Riku attacked a refugee ship. Its cargo, children. He threw the young ones overboard. Their samurai protector, he skinned alive. His crew watched in horror while Riku's monkey fed on the trimmings. Then, mutiny. Black Hand Riku's crew plotted to poison their wretched leader. He was stabbed through the chest and blinded by the poison, but he clung to life, protected by the armor of the Sarugami. Riku set his ship ablaze and fled with his monkey, while his crew burned to death in their fiery tomb. Before he died, Riku hid his Sarugami armor somewhere on Iki Island. Now he haunts the coast, a wrathful spirit who preys on anyone brave or foolish enough to seek the cursed armor of Black Hand Riku.
The legend of Black Hand Riku. No chimpanzee. Or
So
bamboo?
Black
I don't know.
Hand Riku and plotted his death.
Someone had to stop him.
And no one has found his Sarugami armor?
Many have tried, but they all fell victim to his wrathful spirit. People say the monkeys of Iki are his eyes and ears.
If that's the case, he already knows I'm interested. Where did your ship go down?
I don't remember much of that night, but one other crew member survived. Minato. She spent her time hiking Mount Take no Tsuchi, trying to forget the horrors we lived through.
Thank you for the tale.
Be careful. The monkeys are watching. Black Hand Riku sees everything.
Leave Phone's refuge. I knew that.
Just needed one place to sleep.
One arrow, 2 heavy arrows, 2 explosive arrows. Still can't do that, but I'm not signed in. Into PlayStation. Or whatever the fuck. Church Mount Takashushi for Minato. Alright, and then on the way we can do this little that undiscovered location. My horse looks spiffy, bro.
Got the gold on deck.
Two of you, you wait.
Caught him! Dude, I love
on our walks.
Long range shooting with the bow and arrow is so satisfying.
The palaces in Kyoto.
The cat? I'm about to play the flute for a cat. I love any type of rhythm game.
I would pepper her with questions. But soon enough, it was time for bokken practice. My mother would bring me to the swordmaster, a gruff country samurai. But I think she wanted something else for me.
Am I in the right place? I found it. This one's new. Memory of anguish.
I know this battlefield. I tried to forget this place.
I have to relive the battlefield?
This doesn't feel like victory.
Let me take you to your father.
Is this how it's supposed to feel?
No,
Lord
no.
Adachi?
Victories don't have to feel good.
Come on, old man.
How many fell to your blade, Lord Sakai? I hardly recall. Dozens, from what I
Wouldn't all this fire and a bush of grass be worse? Like, they can do like a big wildfire and they wouldn't have no way to put it out. But I guess that's what they did back then, just for light, so.
These weren't warriors. They were untrained villagers with rusted...
Enough! I require a private word with my son. Lord Adachi.
Oh,
Feed
they're
the
too,
men
huh?
and get them drunk.
Come here.
I'm just watching it. Okay, okay. I'm just being a spectator of what happened in the past. Am I supposed to do something, or I'm just supposed to wait for something to happen?
Father.
Oh!
What happened today?
These villagers were helping hide the raiders.
Okay. That was my fault.
We butchered them. All the men in the village.
The samurai ran hot, yes. But these fools attacked us.
The man I killed.
The man you killed was a criminal. He did well today. Better than I expected.
Father.
We fulfilled our orders from Hojito. Raise your head high. Today, you were a warrior.
If you were here today, Father, you condone my actions so freely.
Memory of anguish. That was definitely anguish. And the little version of myself was pretty pissed off. Kimono Trail. That's a name. Katawa Wama Market. I think I butchered that, but you tried. I want to take down as many Mongol territory as I possibly can.
Let's go, son.
Kill enemies who are on fire. That sneeze, excuse me. Oh, there's a whole fortress, my dude. I knew they had birds too. So many archers. Dude, there's like 7 archers, 5 archers. You are not getting me caught, Eagle.
IKI locals, forced to work.
How many? Oh, I can't really tell that. There's even one all the way down there. This just is all outside the base. I can imagine inside the base. These birds, bro. And I killed the bird too. Oh, they're all over this fucking bitch. And there's two archers. Bro, I'm on a mission.
If we share, we all go hungry.
They've seen me.
Fuck! Fucking birds! How did I just trip? Okay, there's no way they can shoot from that far. That's so unrealistic, it's crazy. Fucking bird, bro. I was doing so well.
Like the watchers on Tshima. Hope they fire the same.
I can't shoot at other people? What? That sucks. You can't use it on them? Yeah, what is this? Oh, the banner.
Like a child falling out of a tree. People will die because of you.
Where the fuck is the shaman at, bro? Dumb bitch. I'm coming. I'm gonna take some in the next hour. I was trying to blow that up, but no one came. I actually don't know where they went. I think they're stupid.
He did it!
That was a good trick.
Yes! And no one died. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me.
This is the Eagle's work. The Eagle is inside, but I can't get back in. Not yet.
Can't see anything. What the fuck? I love how the fire was just blocking my whole vision. Like my whole vision was just being blocked. Thank you for that. Let's see if I can go around. I don't see that does anything. Nope, nothing.
Boss!
The Eagle is inside, but I can't get back in. Not yet.
Oh my god. Oh, he's looking for me. Hello, Freya. How you doing? Welcome in, welcome in. I'm sorry I just saw that late. I'm just not trying to die. Welcome in, welcome in. How's your evening? I'm doing good. Just not trying to get my ass kicked 24/7. What you up to? Just not trying to die. Okay, that was bad. That was bad. Don't alarm them. It's good. Finishing up dinner. What you made? What did you cook? Alright, I'm trying to not be spotted right now. 4 of them. 5 right there. Burgers and roasted veggies? Well, that sounds good.
I would love that right now. That sounds fire. Was it good? Did you enjoy your meal? Oh my god, okay. Whoa. Bad user was. What are you doing now then? To relax? After that meal? Oh, no. 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 It was all up in the camera. Let's go! Okay, I just randomly stumbled upon them. I think there's more though. Working still? What on? Stream stuff or is it like... Is it like work? Oh, that's a whole gang of them. There's a whole gang of them. I didn't mean to throw it on the fucking wall. Oh, we didn't get rid of the shaman. Oh my god, okay. Alright, okay. Alright. Yep, that happened. There was like 30 of them just running at me. That's not what you want to see. And I'm in the wrong fucking place. Well, I think I have to go through them, if I'm not mistaken, to get where I need to get. So this is gonna be quite a challenge.
Eagle is inside, but I can't get back in.
Don't.
Not yet.
I can definitely snip him through. Caught him. Nice. Alright, let's not try to be detected so fast because that was just a mess, honestly. Ah shit! Oh, I didn't even see them. How they saw me? There's always some bullshit. God damn it! There's always some bullshit. Every night in the Matrix, bro. Okay, now I'm just getting murdered. Okay, now this is not fun. Now I'm not having fun.
Surge at that shaman's call.
I'm literally gonna die. I have like one hit left, and these people are fucking annoying. And I can't even kill the shaman. I don't know where he is. No, you're just a bull guy. You're not even that important. Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thanks for that. Where are you throwing that at? I love how that still didn't do anything to them. That's great. I love that. That's nice. I don't know where's the shaman, bro. He's pissing me off right now. And there's two of these fuckers. That's great. I just died again. Ugh, these shamans are the worst things. The shaman are the worst. And you can't even climb up that either. I'm gonna figure this out.
Eagle is inside, but I can't get back in.
I'm just not. I just don't want to get caught and then deal with like 20 people again. Shit, it's not fun. Fully dropped. I don't think going down here is gonna do anything. Oh man, a fuck? Can't see anything. Listen, it's scary being a samurai. Bro, they all, oh my god. Look how many of them have to fight. Oh, come on! How you still don't fucking die from fire? Okay, now I'm just missing completely. Okay, literally fucking block, you asshole. Or whatever. Fucking shaman pissing me off. This fucking dude, bro. This nigga's pissing me off! It's only been 3 hours.
There's no way inside.
It's fucking Mongols, bro. I'm glad Japan won. Fucking annoying assholes, bro. No offense to the Hmong people. I'm talking about in game. No offense to the Hmongs out there.
Like a filthy-minded criminal.
I love how they just know. I fucking hate these niggas, bro. Bitch. What the fuck? Archers are the worst. You barely know where they're coming from half the time because you can't even see where the fuck you're looking at. Where am I? I'm sorry. No, I'm not. Because they're so annoying. Oh my god. There's like 30 of them in one spot. I'm not that equipped to fight 30 niggas. If you think that's easy, you can do it.
The eagle is inside, but I can't get back in. Not yet.
I just gotta kill the shaman. Like, that's it. After all that, everything is pretty good. It's just the shaman that are fucking annoying. Okay, I love how I fucked that all up for myself. Niggas are blowing the whistle already. love how they're all getting mind fucked by the shaman. Come on! You can't even give a nigga a fucking chance! Fucking bow niggas are like fucking snipers! God, fucking Hmong niggas, bro. And the weather keeps fucking changing.
The eagle is inside. And I can't get back in. Not yet.
I haven't streamed in like 4 days, so it's gonna be as long as possible. These shamans, I want them to fucking just like not come back to life. Like these niggas are really annoying me. I appreciate you, thank you. I keep people tapped all the time. No matter what they are doing, I always keep them tapped up. Bro, these staff niggas, bro, are absurd. How do you like this gameplay? It's amazing. I love it. Oh, you're an ass! I hate him with a passion. I've been dying to play this too. W for letting me watch? What do you mean letting you watch? I have no control of you watching or just not watching. There's been so many games that I've been wanting to play for like the past couple of months now. I just don't have the money just to buy any of them. And they are all mostly JRPGs. That's what I really like to just play. There's someone on top. I don't. Oh, these niggas was not hit before, bro. Fuck off. I was trying to do an assassination attempt. That failed. I actually didn't. No, fuck off. Where's the shaman? Stop! No, I was trying to hit the shaman, you fucking idiot!
Oh my god, I'm stuck. I just killed myself with my own explosive, and that did nothing to him, so I didn't know what the hell I was trying to do there. Nah, man. I just been enjoying the game with you. That's all. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm glad that I can also keep you some type of company as well. It makes it seem like I'm doing something, right? So I appreciate that compliment. I need to eat. My stomach just rumbled. I told him that. Oh, no, I called him.
Eagle is inside, but I can't get back in. Not yet.
Are they walking? Okay, if they're walking up there, get on the. You cannot get on that rock. I have to jump to it. Okay, I ain't doing all that. He didn't have fast enough time to react.
솜속력씩 왔어. 이거 맞았다.
Oh shit, I was trying to assassinate him. Alright, what's the tactic here? Bro, these don't do shit to them? Like, that's not fair. What the fuck is the point of the damn explosive ball? They don't fucking do shit. Especially since he damn guys. Fuck is the point of using them then? If they're not gonna definitely not do anything to them. I only need one. I don't need three. But, oh my god, this is fuck. How's there 5 niggas up here? Oh, this game. Not even the game. This fucking these damn people. Why are these plugs always giving me problems? Good night, Jesus. It's only 8 o'clock here. And you're going to sleep already? The Xbox controller is being stupid now. I'm starting to sweat like crazy. I'm gonna beat those Mongols, dude. Watch. Come on, controller.
Oh god, whatever. What's the matter? Oh, that's so uncomfortable. How do you change stands? Okay, this is weird. I need the controller. But it's not working right now, of course. The controller is currently out of commission right now because they want to be stupid. So I'm gonna save it here, and we continue tomorrow. Because I'm not playing this shit on on mouse and keyboard. That sounds like a nightmare for everybody. And I bet that it's so sensitive. See, it keeps on flashing. It's not like turning on. So I'll definitely come back tomorrow. And this time I'm gonna come back early in the morning. Because I haven't been streaming. I need to keep myself to a consistent schedule. So I'll catch y'all tomorrow. Okay. I'll catch everyone tomorrow.